If motivation were enough, most men would already be living the life they've always wanted. We don't lack information. We don't lack inspiration. We don't even lack opportunity, if we're honest. We lack continuation. Motivation feels powerful, but it's unreliable. It shows up loud and it leaves quietly. And when it does, a lot of men just panic. They assume something's wrong, that they've lost their edge, that the fire went out. But here's the truth most men never hear. Motivation isn't supposed to last. It was never designed to carry you. So the real question isn't about how do I get motivated again? The real question is what actually carries man forward when motivation dies? That is what we're unpacking today. Let's clear something up right out the gate. Motivation fading is not a character flaw, it's biology. Neuroscience tells us that motivation runs on dopamine, the same chemical tied to novelty, anticipation, and reward. Dopamine spikes when you start something new, when you make a bold decision, you picture a better future, or yes, even when somebody clicks like on your social media profile. But dopamine can't stay elevated. That's not how the chemistry in your body works. Your brain adapts. What once felt exciting, well, that becomes kind of normal. It's not weakness, that's efficiency. Your nervous system is designed to normalize, not to endlessly excite you. So when motivation fades, your brain isn't quitting on you, it's just asking a different question. Are we doing this because it feels good or because it matters? It's an important question, and the Stoics warned us about it thousands of years ago. They believed emotion was a poor master, but a useful signal. Marcus Aurelius wrote, and I'm paraphrasing this, you don't control how you feel, but you always control what you do next. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are just basically weather, right? If you don't like it, stick around 5 minutes, it will change. You don't build your life around the weather because we all live in that place. I think I've heard that quoted everywhere I've ever been, and I've lived a lot of places. Scripture echoes the same idea constantly. Feelings are acknowledged but never crowned king. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Translation, your desire may be present, but desire alone doesn't finish the work. Obedience, faithfulness, daily stewardship, these are 3 post-motivation virtues. They don't rely on hype. They rely on decision. Here's a shift. When motivation fades, you didn't fail. You just reached the point where something deeper is required. Motivation gets you started. Responsibility keeps you moving. Identity keeps you steady. That's growth, not loss. So how do we start to put this into practice? Well, step 1, name the season correctly. Stop saying, I lost motivation. Start saying, I'm in the phase where consistency matters more than emotion. Language shapes behavior, guys. Identify one area that you're mislabeling. That's step 2. Ask yourself, where am I waiting to feel ready instead of acting responsibility? Health, marriage, work, spiritual life? Pick one. Step 3, decide the next unglamorous action. Yeah, I said unglamorous. We're not shooting at the big woo. We're shooting at the real actions. Not the big vision, not the 5-year plan, the next boring, responsible step. Then do it without negotiating with your mood. And here's an irony. Most men think they need more motivation when they actually just need a stronger system for acting without it. Because once motivation leaves the room, something else has to take over. That's where we're going to go right after this word from our sponsors. Now, before we go any further, guys, let me take a quick minute to thank the sponsors who make the show possible. The past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow history. It's because of you that they're making it through. They want to thank you for your continued support by passing on some Christmas specials to our listeners.
Get the Children's Bible Story Pillow 5-pack for $29.98. I have it at my house. My slippers with a free bottle of leather protectant spray for $39.98. Blankets, comforters, and duvets for as low as $25. And a blowout sale on all the standard My Pillows for just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-794-5834 and use promo code THRIVE to take advantage of all these wholesale prices, including the standard My Pillow original for $49.98 normally, now only $14.98. Queens, $18.98. Kings, only $1 more. Guys, we know My Pillow products come with a 10-year warranty, but My Pillow has just announced that they're extending their 60-day money-back guarantee. That's right. Orders placed between now and December 25th will have their 60-day money-back guarantee extended through March 1st, 2026. Now, let's get on with the show.
The Driven to Thrive broadcast, purpose, growth, and lasting impact for men. Helping men go from living to thriving, purpose-filled, intentional lives. Welcome to the Driven to Thrive broadcast, where men learn to lead themselves, their families, and their world with purpose, growth, and lasting impact. I'm your host, Brent Dowling. This show exists to help men gain clarity, ownership, and purpose, not through motivation, but through honest conversations about what it actually takes to build a meaningful life. Gentlemen, welcome to season 7. I am super excited about today's episode because it's season 7, episode 1. I always like the start over. I like the crank over at the beginning of the year. Today, we're diving into what actually carries a man forward when the hype, adrenaline, and inspiration are no more. It's the perfect time of year because there are a lot of people who are hopped up on motivation right now, right? We got all the New Year's resolutions out there. Woo! Sound off in the comments if your gym has been invaded. I see you out there. I know I work out at home these days, but sound off in the comments if you are facing the yearly gym slog of all the temporarily motivated people who are now invading your gym and taking up the bench on their cell phone. You see, there's a problem most men never see coming, and that's that they treat motivation like fuel. We think it's going to take us somewhere. There are all kinds of motivational posters. That's the word I was looking for. There are all kinds of motivational posters, right? You see the cat hanging on the branch, the little kitten, and it says, hang in there, right? There's a whole industry built around this crap. And when the tank is full, they move. Yeah, January 1st. And when it's empty, they sit on the shoulder of the road wondering what went wrong. But motivation was never fuel. Responsibility is. Neuroscience tells us why responsibility outlasts motivation. And it's very simple. Motivation is an emotional thing. It's an emotional response. Responsibility, that's structural. When you commit to responsibility, you shift from a dopamine-driven behavior, right? Anticipation, excitement, etc., to a prefrontal cortex-driven behavior. That's planning, consistency, follow through. That's where that happens in your brain. That's the part of your brain responsible for delayed gratification, long-term thinking, self-regulation, big goals. That's where the success is built. So here's the key. The brain strengthens what you use it for repeatedly. Every time you act without motivation, you're not white-knuckling it through discipline. You're training neural pathways that make follow-through easier on the next go-round and the next go-round. And with every lap you take, it gets easier and easier. Responsibility literally rewires you. That's why men who've been through some stuff, we'll keep it PG for the first episode, they seem calmer, steadier, harder to knock off their course. Guys, if you ever spent time talking with a combat veteran, I've had the privilege of knowing several guys who are combat veterans, including a lot of former teams guys. And there is a calm, steady security about those guys who have seen really bad things and live to tell the tale. They have trained themselves through it. They're not tougher than you necessarily. Well, probably some of those guys are. They're trained. They're more trained than you. They have trained their brains in the most intense possible way to rewire, to be calm, and to follow their discipline and their training over and over again. That is what carries them through. You fall back on the level you're training. You hear people talk about it in the military all the time. Well, that's why they train their asses off, quite literally. Well, there goes that one. They train their asses off, guys. That's how they got there. They practice till that is just the neural pathway. Stoics don't ask, do you feel it? It asks, what does the situation require of you? Epictetus taught us that freedom comes from accepting your role and executing it well. Not the role you wish you had, not the role you'd prefer today, the one in front of you. That's it, just the one in front of you. Responsibility is grounding because it removes debate. When something is your responsibility, the decision is already made. You didn't wake up asking, hey, do I feel like being a dad today? No. You don't get that choice. Once you're a dad, you're a dad. You show up because that's who you are. That's your life now. And every day you show up that way. Why? It's your responsibility as a father to show up. It's not a feeling. It's who you are. Think of it like this, right? For all of my favorite gearheads out there, talking to you, my brother-in-law, motivation is the spark. Responsibility is the engine. A spark can start something, but without an engine, it's not going anywhere. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Many men stay addicted to motivation because it lets them feel productive without actually being consistent. Responsibility, that removes the dopamine hit, and it just creates momentum. And momentum changes identity. So, how do we practice this in real time, right? Install the responsibility engine, guys. Replace the emotional engine, replace emotional language, and stop saying, I don't feel motivated. I've never been a woo-woo guy, guys, but the longer I talk to men, the longer I work with men, the longer I research, the more I understand how important the words we use are becoming. Not to everybody else, but in our own brain. Lose the term, I don't feel motivated. I don't feel like it. You don't have to say the word motivated. A lot of times, like, I don't feel like it. Who cares? Start saying, this is my responsibility. Simple, direct, unarguable. Step 2, define your non-negotiables. Pick 3 responsibilities that happen regardless of your mood. A physical one, a relational one, and a spiritual or personal one. Write them down and treat them like gravity, not a preference. Step 3, keep the promises small and repeatable. Responsibility grows through kept commitments, not heroic efforts. Don't promise intensity, promise consistency. This is where a lot of people lose it on New Year's resolutions. They make these big, lofty goals that they actually have no idea what all is required to accomplish that goal because they didn't think it through. And then they just can't keep up with the consistency because there's far too much involved. Sad fact, 5 push-ups daily beats 1 motivated workout once a week. Just fact. Track completion, step 4, not emotion. At the end of the day, ask, did I do what I said I would do? Not, how did I feel about today? Did I feel like doing things today? How did today go? No. Did I do what I said I was going to do? Remember, we picked 3 things already, yeah? We wrote them down, picked 3 responsibilities we're going to do regardless. Did I do what I said I would do? Once responsibility starts becoming an engine, something shifts. You stop asking, do I feel like doing this? And start living from a different place entirely. Not emotion, not pressure, but identity. And that's where we're headed next. There's a danger of outsourcing discipline to emotion, guys. It's a quiet trap a lot of capable men fall into. They let their emotions decide whether discipline shows up. If they feel confident, action follows. If they feel tired, stressed, or off, everything just gets postponed. And I've known some really responsible people over the years who can get caught in this trap because we all have bad days. We all have hard days. We all have days where we just don't feel like it. That's not listening to your body. That's outsourcing your leadership to your mood. And I have been guilty of this as many times as anybody else. But emotion is a bad manager. Emotion is fast. Discipline is deliberate. When you let emotion dictate your behavior, you're letting the amygdala, your brain's threat and emotion center, run the day. The amygdala is great. It's an amazing part of your brain. But what is great at is detecting danger, reacting quickly, conserving energy. It's terrible at long-term planning. It's terrible at consistency and is super bad at choosing discomfort for future benefit, which is going to be necessary in successful change. That job, that belongs to the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that strengthens when you act despite how you feel. Well, here's the problem. Every time you wait until you feel like it, air quotes, you weaken the very system that's building the discipline. Your brain learns we only actually act when conditions are ideal. It's a fragile operating system, guys. It's how I got out of the habit of walking. I used to walk every single morning. And then it got cold, and I've done a lot of cold damage to my hands over the years. I've had frostbite a couple times. My hands start to ache real bad at anything below 50 degrees. And I went, but it's cold. I'll wait till it's at least above 40 before I go walking. And I waited and I waited. And all of a sudden, I stopped walking on a regular basis. And then I stopped walking altogether. See how quick it breaks? I thought I was listening to my body. That was my excuse. And it broke the operating system that was keeping me healthier. You don't want a fragile operating system. The Stoics were absolutely ruthless about this. They didn't deny emotion. They refused to obey it. People get that wrong about Stoicism. We're not asking men or even recommending to men or anybody that you don't have emotions. The core belief, one of the core beliefs of Stoicism, is using it for information, not for direction. Epictetus taught us that the space between stimulus and response is where freedom lives. Emotions make suggestions. Reason, logic, intelligence, real data, that makes the decision. When emotions become the decision maker, you don't become more authentic, you become more predictable. And predictability is weakness when life gets hard. Let me give you an example. David Goggins, love him, hate him. I know on the internet, there's about a 50-50 split on that. The guy cracks me up because so many people he's so polarizing to people. But all that aside, he openly talks about days when he hated the work, where emotions screamed quit. What made him different wasn't the intensity, at least at first. It was the non-negotiation. He removed the emotion from the decision loop. You don't have to become Goggins. Not everybody is even physically capable. I'm sure he would disagree with me on that, but there is a level of genetics involved with it and just time and training. You don't got to be him, but the principle matters. The more emotionally neutral your discipline becomes, the more unstoppable it really is. When discipline's outsourced to emotion, progress becomes inconsistent, confidence becomes conditional, identity becomes, well, unstable. You're not living as the man who does the work, you're living as the man who might, possibly, depending on the day. Gentlemen, that erodes self-trust, and self-trust is the foundationship to ownership. Foundational. I can't even talk today. And self-trust is foundational to ownership, guys. It's absolutely required. So let's give a real way to work on this, okay? Reclaim your discipline from emotion. Step 1, catch the phrase. Pay attention to how often you say, I don't feel like it. Whether it's I don't feel like it today, or I'm just not feeling it today, or oh, maybe tomorrow. It's all the same words, or the same thought, just different words. And you don't even have to say them out loud. Okay. If you say it in your head, it still counts. So pay attention to how often you say, I just don't feel like it today. That's not honesty. That's just abdication when you say that. Step 2, install a pause. When emotion resists action, don't argue with it. Just say, noted, we're doing this anyways. Calm, neutral, firm. Because if you're having this conversation in your head or even out loud, you're still in the running. Step 3, make discipline boring. Remove the hype, remove the intensity, same time, same place, same action. Boring discipline is durable discipline. You can find this among some of the most successful people in the world. This basis is found in Atomic Habits, which James Clear it's a best-selling book for a reason, guys. But you can find this in some of your favorite highly successful business YouTubers too. Make discipline boring. Make it simple. Make it easy. Step 4, track follow through, not mood. End the day asking, did emotion lead or did I? It's a simple question, right? Here's the twist that most men are going to miss. The goal isn't to kill emotion, it's to stop letting it take the driver's seat. Because once discipline stops being emotional, it becomes identity based. And that shift from how I feel to who I am, that changes everything. And that's our next move. Now that we've looked at making that emotional shift, we have to go from I feel like it to this is who I am. We have to make it our identity if we're going to be successful. Right after you stop outsourcing discipline to emotion, you hit the next fork on the road. And that's this. You can either keep running your life off desire or you can start running it off of identity. Because the truth is, most men don't have a discipline problem. They have an identity problem. They keep asking, consciously or not, do I feel like being consistent today? Do I feel like being patient today? Do I feel like going and doing hard things today? You may not ask that question out loud, but you ask that question a lot. That question will betray you because feelings are not stable, as we've said. The grown man question is different. What kind of man am I? What does a man like me do next? Do you feel the difference in that question? Here's what's wild, guys. When you tie your actions to feelings, you negotiate every single day. Like I said, you're asking yourself those questions all the time. But when you tie your actions to your identity, you stop negotiating because you're protecting something bigger than comfort. Identity-based change sounds like this. I'm the kind of man who keeps my word. I'm a husband who pursues my wife. I'm a father who shows up every day for my children. I'm a man who trains even when I'm tired. or even when it's cold. It's not positive affirmations. That's not woo-woo crap. It's a standard. The more you live in that standard, the more your brain starts to treat it like truth. You are self-creating. Your self-image catches up to your repeated choices. Who you show up as every day becomes your identity and the way you see yourself. So let's go at it from another angle, right? This is where faith adds some weight without turning it into a sermon, guys. Biblically, maturity looks like consistency, not hype, not vibes, not I'm on fire today. It's faithfulness. There's a deep identity statement in scripture that matters here. You're called to be transformed, not just informed, meaning you don't just learn what's right, you become the kind of man who does what's right, even when you don't feel like it. Because identity isn't discovered in a moment of inspiration, it's forged in 1,000 quiet decisions. So, real example for you, right? Keanu Reeves. Love Keanu Reeves. I've thought the world of him for a long time as an actor. I love his movies. But if you actually know anything about the man, he's actually really kind of a subtle guy. You'll find him traveling on mass transit. He takes pictures with fans all the time. He walks around. He doesn't have bodyguards. Keanu's not loud about discipline. No random intensity. No, look at me, grind set. No, he's just known for consistency, showing up, treating people well, putting in the effort, staying grounded despite the fame, putting in the laps and the practice. That's identity in motion, not emotionally driven, not performative, just this is who I am. And that's what we're building, a life that doesn't collapse when the mood dips. So try this, right? If this is an area where you feel like you could use some more practice, try this. Install identity-based discipline. Write one identity sentence. Pick the responsibility you've been wobbling on and finish this statement. I am the kind of man who blank. Now, some of you have been around the show for a long time, might remember a couple seasons ago, I did a live therapy session where I worked with a therapist live on the show who does talk therapy. And we made exactly these kind of statements live on air with me giving feedback about how my body was responding to things I said. I honestly didn't believe much in this until then. But just making these statements helps rewrite your brain. So here's some examples. I am the kind of man who does what he says, what he said he'd do. I'm the kind of man who handles his health like it matters. I'm the kind of man who leaves his home calmly. You fill in the blank. I'm the kind of man who fill in the blank. Step 2, choose one proof action. Not a huge life overhaul, just one small act that proves that identity today. Maybe that's 10 push-ups. Maybe that's 5 minutes of prayer and reading scripture. Maybe that's texting your wife with intention, not like, hey, what do you need at the grocery store on the way home? But like texting your wife with intentional communication and connection. Maybe that's cleaning one corner of the chaos in your life. Maybe that's making a hard phone call. Pick a small act that proves that identity that you affirmed in step 1. And in step 3, use that identity script when resistance shows up. When you feel that internal excuse, train just trying to leave the station, this response is simple. I don't do this because I feel like it. I do it because this is who I am. Calm, no drama, no pump up, no psych up, no motivation. Just, I do this because I feel like it. I do it because this is who I don't do this because I feel like it. I do it because this is who I am. And then I would repeat step one. I am the kind of man who follows step three with step one statement. Now, once identity becomes the driver instead of motivation, something strange is going to start to happen. You're going to stop burning energy on constant decision making because, believe it or not, all that wishy-washy actually makes you tired. It exhausts your brain. Because clarity and ownership shrink the number of choices you actually have to debate in your brain every day. Which means next we talk about the hidden advantage of identity. Once you have established who you are and you do things because of who you are, and you're not batting these crazy, stupid, everyday decisions around that you don't need to be, there's this huge hidden advantage. And that is that clarity eliminates most decision fatigue. And ownership, it stops you from slipping into excuses. You see, clarity and ownership eliminate most decision fatigue. And guess what, guys? You're not actually as tired as you think you are. You have decision fatigue. Think about it like this. At the beginning of the day, you start with a full tank of gas, right? And I'm going to come along and punch a hole in the bottom of the gas tank. Now, that tank's going to drain throughout the day, period. How much you drive, how you drive, that's going to speed that up or slow it down, but it's going to drain at a constant rate, regardless of what you do. And every action you take with that vehicle just speeds up that process. That is your brain every single day. Most men don't realize how tired they are. And it's not physical, it's mental. They wake up already negotiating. Should I work out today? Ooh, what should I have for breakfast? Should I have that conversation? Should I push this off? Ooh, should I do that? Oh, I told my wife I was going to do that, but do I really? Am I going to get in trouble if I don't do that? We negotiate everything. We call it an art form. And good negotiation is an art form, but there is a place for negotiation, and it's not in everyday small things. And by noon, the majority of men are drained. Not because life is heavy, but because everything's up for debate. Because you're debating all these things that don't need your emotional and mental energy. Well, not if you identify as, I'm a man who does this, and that informs your decision. That ownership and clarity of who you are and what you do will actually start to remove the silent killer of decision fatigue. Decision fatigue isn't about big choices, it's about volume. Every undecided responsibility taxes your mental bandwidth. Your brain is constantly asking, do we really have to do this? Now, if you have kids, you know all about negotiating, right? They negotiate everything. Clarity in your life removes a lot of those questions, and you don't have to think about them. When something's clear, there's not a debate. There's no emotional weighing. There's no internal argument. There's no pressure. There's no distraction. Ownership just turns action into default behavior. And that's why men with strong standards, they seem calmer. Not because life's easier, but because fewer decisions are open-ended. The more open decisions there are out there, the more taxing it is for you. The Stoics believed in pre-deciding. They reduced complexity by answering questions before emotions ever showed up. Not, what do I feel like doing today? Instead, it was, what kind of man have I already decided to be? When ownership is clear, execution becomes boring. And boring is powerful. I know a lot of people don't like boring, but boring is powerful. Stoicism isn't about grit for grit's sake. It's about conserving energy for what actually matters. Let me give you a real life example here. You may have heard this one from me before, but Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, almost all of us know those names. We can even throw out Barack Obama because he bought into this too. Regardless of how you feel about these people, okay, I'm not asking about politics. I'm not asking about business. Regardless of what you feel about them, they're actually famously linked to their clothing choices. Why? Because they have one set of clothes. Now, let me be clear about that. No, they don't wear dirty clothes every day. They just have 20 of the same stinky shirt and 20 of the same pants and 20 of the same blazer and 20 of the same stupid turtleneck, Steve Jobs, God rest his soul, right? They wore the same thing every day. Why? Because they're incredibly busy people who understood the value of limiting decision fatigue. They understand that you only have so many good decisions in your head during the day, period. That gas tank only gets so full. They understood something most men absolutely miss, and that's every unnecessary decision steals energy from meaningful leadership, relationships, and important decisions. Clarity wasn't about style. We all made fun of them. I've certainly made fun of them. And there's a part of me that realizes what a great idea this is. It's about bandwidth. The same applies to your health, your marriage, your work, your spiritual life. When standards are clear, when ownership and identity bring clarity, choices disappear, and you have more mental and emotional energy and better decision-making capability for things that matter. When you set a standard up, I work out every day for 30 minutes a day. I spend an hour on my marriage every single day. I go to work for 8 hours a day and I give my best while I am there. And I do my very best work and stay focused and on task. I pray every morning and I read my Bible every night or whatever you do. When you decide I am a man who does these things, they are no longer not negotiables and they just become your identity. Then you don't have that emotional drain. You don't have the mental drain. You don't have that constant weight of you going, well, am I really going to do this? That leaves you exhausted every day. So here's something to work on. If this is an area where you feel like you need to work kill the decision fatigue at its roots. Okay. Step one, identify one draining decision loop. Ask yourself, what decision do I keep remaking over and over and over again that should already be settled? It's like just a foregone conclusion. That might be training consistency, phone boundaries, bedtime routines, saying no to certain people, spiritual practices. Step two, decide once on paper. Write a clear standard. I train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, no debate. Add a time in there for your own good. Or I don't scroll in bed. Or better yet, my phone doesn't go anywhere near my bed. I address issues early instead of avoiding them. Not aspirational. Not aspirational. That's horrible. I can't even talk today. Not aspirational. Executable. Step three, attach ownership language to it. Replace I should with I am responsible for. I am a man who does. Responsibility closes loopholes. Step four, execute without emotion. No motivation check, no mood scan. No, do I feel like this? Or do I really have to? Or today's kind of crap. Nope, just action. And here's the thing. When clarity removes decision fatigue and ownership keeps you moving, you'll still face one final test. because there will be seasons where no one notices, no one applauds, no one affirms the work. You're just kind of doing your thing. And that's where a lot of men quietly quit. So the real question becomes, who are you when no one is clapping? Because that's where we're going next, guys. I am a man that there's a moment that reveals who you are. That moment is not when things are exciting. It's not when progress is visible. It's not when people are cheering, when you got a lot of support, when you have a lot of people paying attention. That moment is when the work feels invisible. The results are slow, real slow. If you remember in our last conversation, we were talking about that season in the wilderness. Yeah. When no one notices the effort, when quitting would be easy and easy to justify too. Most men don't quit loudly. They don't blow things up. They just drift. Just let it go, right? A little Elsa magic. They tell themselves, I'll come back to it later. This season is just too busy. No one would blame me, ... And slowly, ownership erodes. As humans, we're wired for an external reward. It's what you're fighting against. Your brain is designed to respond to feedback. That's why social media has our numbers so well. It's designed to gamify feedback. Praise, progress markers, recognition. But when those disappear, motivation collapses. It's not weakness, it's wiring. That's why it's such an uphill battle to step away from this. But mature men learn to shift the reward system. They stop relying on external validation and start using internal standards. Instead of asking, is this paying off yet? They ask, am I keeping my word? Because I'm a man who keeps my word. That shift keeps you moving when the scoreboard's blank. That's where faith carries real weight. Some of the most important work a man does will never be posted, will never be praised, never be publicly rewarded. Scripture constantly honors the unseen man, the one who shows up when it's boring, the one who obeys when it's inconvenient, the one that leads when no one thinks of him. Faith reframes success, not as an outcome, but as obedience over time. And obedience doesn't require applause. Let me give you a real life example. Denzel Washington has talked openly about discipline, faith, and doing work long before the spotlight arrived. Years of rejection, years of anonymity, years where the calling wasn't validated by success. What sustained him wasn't motivation, it was commitment to who he believed he was becoming. Now, you know the name because the applause came later, but the standard came first. So how do you build a life that doesn't need applause? Step one, identify your offstage responsibility. Ask, what am I doing right now that no one sees but matters deeply? In your marriage, if you're married, in your fatherhood, if you're a parent, in your integrity, in your spiritual life, in your health, in your job. What are you doing right now that no one sees but matters deeply? I have a good friend that if he stopped showing up and going to work, his company would probably collapse. Honest to goodness. That's not an exaggeration. No one actually understands what he does, but they have figured out if he doesn't do it, they're screwed. But he did that for a lot of years before they realized if he wasn't doing it, they were screwed. So, what am I doing right now that no one sees but matters deeply? Name it. Words matter on this. Step 2 is remove the expectation of recognition. Say this out loud. This may never be celebrated, but I'm going to do it anyway. That one's hard, especially in a society where we're so wired to need outside applause. This may never be celebrated, but I will do it anyway. The sentence builds backbone. Step 3, create a private scoreboard. Track the days you've kept your word, the actions taken despite resistance, the standards upheld quietly. We talked about this in the last show. Not for ego, but for self-trust. And step 4, stay in the fight one day at a time. Don't project years ahead. Just answer, what does faithfulness with this look like today? Then do it. It's really that simple. I can't make it big and flashy, and I don't think that's actually would benefit you in any way if I did. So let's bring this home. Motivation is a spark. Responsibility, that's the engine. Identity is the frame. Clarity removes friction. And faithfulness keeps you moving when no one's watching. So here's a question that I'm going to ask you to sit with. If motivation never comes back, what kind of man will you choose to be anyway? Not when it's exciting, not when it's rewarded, but when it's quiet, whether you're in the wilderness or in the climb, wherever you are in the journey. If motivation never comes back, what kind of man will you choose to be anyway? Guys, as we start January off, this week, don't try and fix everything. Just do this. Identify one responsibility you've been avoiding, not with shame, not with guilt, but with honesty. Then take one small, non-negotiable action and do it without waiting to feel ready. That's how clarity is built. That's how ownership is reclaimed. And that's how purpose is practiced. And that's how a man moves forward, even when the motivation is gone. Guys, if you know somebody struggling who would benefit from the show, please share this with your friends. Share this with anybody you think could benefit from listening to this. Welcome to season 7, guys. I am so psyched to be here and still going 392 episodes in. And as always, remember, better tomorrow because of what you do today.
The Driven to Thrive broadcast, purpose, growth, and lasting impact for men. Helping men go from living to thriving, purpose-filled, intentional lives.